Let's sit tall and just close the eyes. And just take these moments to connect with yourself. And take these moments to recognize the power of your own breath. The breath is a channel for divinity, presence, patience, compassion, and love. The breath is life. And the breath can be peace. So as you breathe in and as you breathe out, recognize this. The power of the breath. And draw the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om and the invocation mantras. Breathing in. Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrin Vanuti Pasita Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajinivati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Divo Brahataf Parvatada Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Kritachi Shagmam Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. And gently releasing the hands and fluttering the eyes open. And so today I thought we'd talk about investments. Investments, such an interesting word. We're talking about finances? Well, maybe that'll come up. I mean, think about it for a moment. You know, what kind of investments do you make with your money? Yeah, do you play the market? Do you put money in stocks and bonds and all these other things? And if not, why? Because there's a perception that you don't have enough to? Because you're afraid of the volatility of the market, the changeability of the market? Because you have no interest? Because you've heard bad things about it and you don't want to get caught up in that? Why? I'm not here to tell you to invest in the market. I'm just making the point that there's a reason why you don't. And obviously, we're not going to talk about investing in financial markets today. But it's a great place to start the conversation because it's easy to understand. How many of you don't invest because of the volatility of the market? Because there's a fear associated. How many of you don't invest because you're not interested? How many of you don't invest because you don't perceive you have funds available to invest? What are some of the other reasons? Any others that I haven't said? Distrust. Yeah, distrust. Oh, yeah, distrust. Yeah. Fear. Absolutely. Yeah. So distrust, fear, disinterest. These are all qualities, things that stop us from investing, but not just in financial markets. They stop us from investing our heart. They stop us from investing our mind. They stop us from investing our practice. They stop us from investing ourselves into the experience of the self. Because maybe we don't trust that it's there, accessible to us. Maybe we're afraid what it means. What do I have to let go of in order to really know who I am? Maybe we're not interested because, there's other things to be interested in. And this requires a certain kind of work, and it's not for everybody, So what is the reason? What is the reason why you hold yourself back from investing in self-discovery? What is the reason you hold yourself back from investing in the innate peacefulness that exists within you versus the volatile markets out there? What is it that stops you or that holds you back from investing in your own goodness, in your own light, in unity, and in connection? Distrust is absolutely such a huge one because, first of all, we've been told so many things in life, right? We've been told there's nothing special about you. We've been told just follow. Just do what we tell you to do. We've been told you, especially as women, can't trust that voice inside your head or heart. We've been told it's wrong. I remember I read an article about, I guess a couple of years ago now. I'm not sure if what's his name? Joel Osteen? What's his name? Mm-hmm. Is that it? Yeah. As you can tell, I'm really up on those things. But I just remember this article. Somebody sent it to me, and I think it was him. He said, the problem with yoga. Yeah, I love hearing that from people who don't practice. The problem with yoga is that it teaches you how to be self-reliant in your own salvation. How to be self-reliant in your own salvation. In other words, the yogi can become self-realized and doesn't need a middleman or a middlewoman in order to do so. There goes the Lear jets, So, yeah, I have a little issue with that. Of course it's self-reliant. It has to be. Whether you're in yoga or any other tradition, you have to be the one to decide. You have to be the one to make the investment. And not in his Learjet. And I'm not down on Joel because I don't even know Joel. I haven't read any of his books or listened to much more than 2 seconds of his talks. But in my humble opinion, any human being on this earth that tells you to be reliant upon someone else for your own salvation is not the person you should listen to. Because you have to be the one to make the investment. And the investment has to be in nothing other than you. And by that, what I mean is, how much goodness can you bring to this world? How much peace can you walk with in each step? How much generosity can you yourself practice toward those who have little to nothing? How much can you give to those who truly need, not to those who don't? How much can you learn about yourself, about the sacredness of divinity and all that means? How much can you invest in that experience? You have to be self-reliant. It's a necessary. And it is necessary. And it doesn't mean that if an individual has a love for Jesus Christ, that all of a sudden, because they're becoming self-reliant, they don't love Christ anymore. I'm not even an identified Catholic anymore, and I still love Jesus Christ. And I still love Mary. And I still love Saraswati and Shiva and Durga and Kali and Hanuman and all of them. Muhammad, you name it. I love that. I don't care what name you call it. Because when you become self-reliant, you understand, or at least you begin to understand, and build on that knowledge of what is actually a high-value investment versus a low-value investment. And a low-value investment is something that takes your joy from you. And by joy, I don't mean satisfaction. You know, we get our way, we get a new car, we get a new jet. By joy, I mean the ability to witness the healing of your own self and others in little parts along the way. You ever give someone a gift? And when you handed them a gift, did the look on their face bring you joy? Of course it did. So when you hand someone food who's hungry, when you help someone build a shelter who has no shelter, when you support those who are sick receiving medicine or care of some sort, when you see the child crying and you extend your heart in your hand, when you see the elder having trouble carrying bags or walking up the stairs or across the road and you offer your support, and you see that beautiful relief on their face because of your kindness, that's the joy. I thought we weren't supposed to be attached. We're not attached. We're having an experience, and the experience is joy. And it's not a joy that comes from under-investing ourselves. It's a joy that comes from investing ourselves fully in our own capacity to love, to be compassionate, and to serve. So you don't need a middle person. You don't need that. You don't need me. You don't need anybody. You need you. You're the key. And if you're under-investing, you need to ask yourself, why? Why? And again, that word distrust came up because we've been told over and over, you can't trust what you think. You can't trust. What are you going to get out of it? How are they going to pay you back? What if they don't deserve it? Distrust. It's just bred into us. It's crazy. So we have to do some work there.
Well, can I just say, when you're talking about all this investing and the distrust, just comes to mind the concept financially of risk versus reward. Mm-hmm. And so much of what you're saying is trusting the markets, so to speak, but taking that risk to trust ourselves enough. And that's not easy to get to the point of reward, which is the joy, the experience, the love, right?
Right, exactly, absolutely. And what is the risk? What is the risk in this kind of investment, in spiritual investment? Well, we've been told you could be taken advantage of, people might not deserve it, you waste your time, you waste your resources. We've been told to fear. But actually, the greatest risk is not doing it. That's the greatest risk. The greatest risk to us is not investing. It doesn't matter what the person does with what you give them once you've given it. You gave it, so it's no longer yours to be concerned with. You just give out of the generosity of your heart, and perhaps out of compassion and love. And then it's up to them. And many of you may recall, because I have talked about it, I used to go up to the city a lot, and when I would go up there, I would always go with some friends, and a couple of those friends didn't like my habits. One of my habits was, when I see homeless people, I either give them money or food, It's like they're hungry, feed them. And if I don't have food on me to give them, then I give them a couple of dollars to go buy themselves something to eat. They get mad at me and be like, how do you know they're not just going to go drink it in the bar? I'm like, I don't care if they're going to do what they're going to do with it. I'm not giving it to them with the condition that they have to do what I'm telling them to do with it. It's obvious that they're homeless. It's obvious that they're suffering. maybe they'll buy themselves something to eat, you know. It's not my business, though, once I give it away. I give a gift, and you do what you're going to do with it. Just don't throw it away. Re-gift it to somebody else. That's the only condition I have. You know. And then this one day, the one particular person, he got so upset with me. He was like, I'm not going to walk near you if you do that. It always draws unwanted attention. Da, 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 da. Why do you do that? And I just looked at him, and I said, okay, you want the real answer? Here's the real answer. That person, whether they know it or not, agreed to be born into a condition in this life that I would encounter to give me the opportunity to make an investment, to give me an opportunity to be of service. They allowed themselves, they chose this for themselves, spiritually speaking, so that I could be a better person. So I'm going to be the better person than just walking past them and acting like I don't see. They never asked me that again. Matter of fact, I'm not sure they ever went to the city with me again after that, but whatever. You know. So this distrust that we have is huge, absolutely huge. But can you imagine living your life based in distrust? You all should be able to imagine because we all do it. But just imagine that we didn't even have this conversation, you know, because we didn't trust the conversation. So we're like, shut it out, not listening. I don't see it. I don't hear it. I don't speak it. I don't know it. And then we go through our life not trusting in the goodness of compassion, the goodness of love. Where does that leave us? What are we trusting in then? The opposite. We're trusting in that which is not good, that which is not compassion, and that which is not love. Because if you say no to one, you're automatically saying yes to the other. And what kind of world does that give us? Every man on his own, every woman for herself. No. Cats and dogs. Scruffing for whatever they can get. Pushing others out of the way. Because, you know, distrust leads to there's not enough for me, so you can't have any. And that leads to interpersonal violence. It's powerful, isn't it? You start thinking about those things. The second is fear, right? Fear is another reason why we don't invest. And fear both comes from distrust and it feeds into distrust. And fear, its root, one of its roots, got many I'm sure, but one of its roots is lacking. So fear comes, at least in part, from this idea that I don't have enough. So if I don't have enough, how can I give to anybody else? If I don't have enough for myself, then how do I take something from myself to give? Isn't that hurting myself? Isn't that violence to myself? You know, we start looking for all these justifications because we feel I don't have enough. And I need to justify not giving. Without sounding too, unicornish. I love unicorns, by the way. But without sounding too much of that. There is this beautiful concept in yoga, and it is also the name of the mother, Shri. And Shri it has a number of different meanings. The first is a salutation. It's the greatness. Shri Saraswati, the great mother Saraswati, the great. Related to that, it also means abundance. The great continuation. The great continuity. The great cornucopia. The cornucopia is like at Thanksgiving. Those big baskets of stuff just like plowed out on the table, right? Does anybody ever eat what's in there? They should. Right? That's like all the good stuff. It's all the fruit and the vegetables and the grapes and the little sugar droplets all over everything. Back in the day when my kids were younger, we'd make this huge Thanksgiving spread, and I didn't eat meat. But they did. So I would make them their stuff, and then I would make this pastry cornucopia. So I would get the pastry and I would make the cornucopia, and then I would stuff it with baked apples and baked grapes with the turbinado sugar sprinkled over the top of it and all these other things in there. And inevitably, they'd go for it. They enjoyed their turkey and stuff too, but they really liked the cornucopia. Yeah. This concept of Shri is the cornucopia, and the cornucopia is endless. It's abundant. It's never depleting or diminishing. Just like the abundance of the universe is never depleting or diminishing. It's so abundant that you will always have exactly what it is that you need. You may not have what you want, but you will have what you need. Well, how could that be true? Just marry that into the story of the homeless people up in New York City. They're there so that I can figure out how to be a better person when I encounter them. Whatever you see in the world, whatever you encounter in the world, is there for two reasons. The first is because of human ignorance, and the second is so that we can all figure out how the hell to be better people. And by being better people, it means coming into a truer relationship with the goodness that exists within us, rather than an intimate relationship with the fear and all that brings with it. When we acknowledge the abundance of the universe, what we're saying is, of course I have enough. If I have one apple, I can give you a piece of it. If I have 2 apples, I can give you 1. If I have 3 apples, I can give all 3 to you and go find myself another apple. If I have 8 apples, I can give them each of you an apple. If I have 9, then I'll have 1 too. But if I only have 8, I can give each one of you an apple. And there's so much out there in the world that I can walk outside right now and go find something. So I don't even have to keep an apple for myself or a piece of an apple. But do you see all those options that I have? What am I going to do with 9 apples? Make a pie. Then I give you all a piece of pie. Make baked apples. Then I give you all a little bowl of baked apple cobbler. But whatever it is that I have, I should do something with it that allows me to invest in you. In you receiving kindness. In you experiencing goodness. And in me being brave enough to do so. Overcoming my fear. Overcoming my doubt. Overcoming my distrust. Well, what if they don't like apple cobbler? Not my problem. Not my problem. A little crazy if you ask me, but not my problem. Does that make sense so far? Yeah. Do any of you not like apple cobbler? Okay, point taken.
Do you have a good vegan apple cobbler recipe?
Oh, they make such good apple cobbler down there. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good, so good. There's quite a few different ways to make it. Personally, I like the kind that is baked in a bit of a bread almost. Yeah. So it's almost like a cake pie. Sort of.
I think they call it this.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. They put the apples in with all the gooey stuff, and then they put crumbles on top of it. And the crumbles are just flour mixed with cinnamon and stuff like that. But Linda makes a really nice one too. Yeah. So to overcome our fear, it means that we have to step out of our fear and take the action anyway. Make the investment anyway. even though we're afraid. Knees can be knocking together, heart can be pounding, mind can be thinking, are you crazy? But you do it anyway. When I was over in Ireland recently, Casey and Scott were there with me, and we went to a place called the Carrica Rope Bridge. And I don't think a lot of people know, but I have a fear of heights. It's not a drastic fear, like I'm fine in planes and stuff like that. It's more when I'm like at the top of a mountain, like when I lose my footing, when I'm not sure, you know. So I climb mountains often in order to try to overcome this. It hasn't worked yet though. But anyway, so we get there and we take the little hike to get to this rope bridge, and it's a rope bridge that goes from one cliff to this protruding rock in the ocean, and it's a very steep fall with jagged rocks at the bottom and ocean water, you know. And so they go first, and they're just like all, you know, having fun and stuff, and they're like, come on. I said, no, I'll wait till you get to the other side. That's fine, go, you know. And so I stood there and I thought, I don't really have to do this. Nope, I really don't have to. And then I thought, yes, I do. I have to do this. Okay, so one breath, one step at a time. One breath, one step at a time. So the first step out onto this rope bridge, which is not just rope, it's got like these planks that go across too. The first step and the thing moves. You know, maybe that's what freaks me out. I don't know. But so I take my second step, and now I'm completely on. And, you know, you hold on to the ropes while you're walking. And my thighs felt like Jell-O. Like, it was almost like, what's holding me up right now? Because it's not my muscles. And I just kept breathing and kept walking. And then I stopped halfway through because I wanted to look and see, because it was beautiful. It was like such a beautiful, picturesque scene to look behind me and to see the little fisherman's cottage sitting nestled into the edge of the rocks, and then to look to one side and to see the cliffs from where I was standing, and to look out the other side and to see the shores of Scotland. It's just beautiful, you know? But I would have never seen it from that perspective had I not taken those steps, made that investment to overcome my fear, at least in that moment, of heights, and to take the chance, and to let the stories of, but what if the rope bridge breaks? What if it frays? You know, what if a big wind comes? What if the what ifs 99.999% of the time don't happen. We say 99.999 because there's always that 0.0001%. Right? But then what are you going to say? You know? What are you going to do? If it's meant to be, it's going to be. If it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. But all those what ifs in your mind aren't going to make it happen. The what ifs are just kind of a poor investment of your mental energy. So walk across the bridge. And I did. I went all the way across and then walked around the path down to this really beautiful little area. I mean, it's just so, you know, you don't know what's waiting there for you until you go there. You don't know what's waiting there until you make the investment. You don't know truly what goodness feels like, what unity and harmony and connection feel like, what joy feels like, until you make that investment. Overcome the fear. Make the investment. Close out the voices that tell you, what are you, crazy? Don't listen to them. They're not value added. They're trying to keep you in a place bound to your fear because they're bound to theirs, and lonely likes company. Instead of making the investment that they're making, show them that you have the power to make an alternate investment, and by extension, so do they. So distrust and fear. Disinterest. That's a huge one. I'm not interested. Apathy. I don't want to make an investment in goodness. What do I care? What's in it for me? This is actually a bigger problem than the other two. The other two are very easy to overcome. All you have to do is take the first step. And then that cycle builds upon itself. But when there's truly apathy and disinterest in a person, then there needs to be grace. Some kind of an infusion of grace that breaks through the walls of apathy, through the veils of that disinterest. And that takes work and time and patience. And it may never happen in front of our eyes. So if we're sitting there and we're saying about somebody else being apathetic and disinterested, the only thing that we can do is be the example. That's the only thing that we can provide is the example. And maybe through the grace of the Divine Mother, they'll be watching and they'll be wondering, why do they get such joy out of that? And be compelled to try it also. But if we're the ones who are apathetic, that is so hard. Then you really, really need to draw from deep within yourself the power to pick yourself up and to do it anyway. To go through the motions if that's what it has to be. To explore. But more often than not, they say, I don't have that energy. I don't have that. And then we want to look at a few things. We want to look and see what type of external influences might be supporting this mindset, this heart set of apathy. Might there be depression? Clinical depression. Might there be environmental reasons for that depression, not just genetic reasons? Or, and what I mean by environmental is external stresses, external tensions, chemicals, poisons in the environment, all of these different types of things. Too much time indoors, not enough time outdoors in the sun, or outdoors just in the fresh air. Too much time in front of the computer, not enough time moving the body, which moves the energy, which allows a sense of upliftedness and elevation. We need to look and see what is it that's reinforcing an apathetic nature. Because it's not our true nature to be apathetic. It's our true nature to simply be of service to the greater good and to be peaceful. And peaceful and apathetic are not the same thing. Somebody may say, well, I don't want to get involved because, it's not my problem, or somebody else will do it, or I lack. So we see that all those other ones, the distrust and the stories and the fear, they're all part of it. But when we come into that place of disinterest, that deep place of disinterest, there's something else playing a part there too. And that's a tricky situation to uncover exactly what it is. And it takes time. A lot of time. So when you encounter someone outside of yourself who's like that, just be the example. Just be kind. And don't go up into their face and be like, well, this is what I'm trying to teach you. This is what I'm trying. You don't do that because they're not interested. And it even states in the Yoga Sutras, don't spend your time trying to teach the one who doesn't want to learn. Because you can't. So you just be an example. And maybe by the grace of the divine, they'll be looking in a certain moment and they'll be inspired. When it comes to you, if you feel apathetic, don't think that you can be your own doctor. Reach out and talk to somebody, a therapist, hotline number, your doctor, and say, I don't have the interests that maybe I once had. I don't have the wherewithal to even want to. I have a feeling that might not be healthy. And ask for support. Let that be your first step. And then when the support comes to you, do your very best to accept it. When it's genuine support. Well, what if they want me to take medicine? Well, here's another story. I was at a Krishna Das concert one time up in New York City. He was at Dharma Mitra's place up there. And it was a very lovely experience. He's just so wonderful. He truly is. And that day he was there with a gentleman who, I don't remember his name, but I think he had written a book on lucid dreaming. And so he was there with KD, and they were doing, like a kirtan and talking thing. So Krishna Das was chanting, and then they'd talk a little bit. And there came time for Q&A, and a woman raised her hand, and she said, I thought it was just like the most strange, interesting question, very out of place, but she said, I have a question. I am a yoga therapist, and I have a client. And my client has been on medication for a long time. And I want to take them off that medication. Red flag number 1. Because I know that these practices will make it so they don't need that medication. They don't need that medication. So what do you think I should do? And like I said, this was a kirtan, and they were talking about lucid dreaming. And so, maybe there was a connection there, but I wasn't getting it, But the red flag to me was, I'm a yoga therapist too, and I don't want to take any of my clients off of their medication. That's not my part to play. I am not a doctor, And I was so grateful because KD is so wise. He is just so wise and so wonderful. He took a breath in, and her question was longer than that and a little bit judgier too, but, against modern medicine. And he turned around and he said to her, how long have you been working with this person? And she said, well, I don't know, maybe like 3 months or something. And he said, how long has she been taking the medicine? And she said, oh, I don't know, but a lot longer than that. And he looked at her and he said, well, how do you know that her positive response to what you're offering her is not because of those medications? That if you suddenly took them away from her, she might not be able to function and benefit from what you're sharing with her. How do you know that? Are you willing to take that chance? I was so grateful for what he said, So if you have fear and distrust in medicine, you don't have to jump into the fire of it, but at least do some work talking to people who have an idea that's based on a little bit more than fear, a little bit more than distrust. People who have been educated in these things. You don't have to take the first prescription you're offered, or the second or the third or any. But how do you know that the cloud of apathy that's hovering over your head, how do you know that medicine might not be the answer, might be the answer? So these are the major areas that we find ourselves stuck in when we want to make an investment in goodness, when we want to make an investment in peace. But we're guided by these other principles. These are not positive principles. The principle of fear, the principle of doubt, the principle of distrust, the principle of apathy. And they are principles because they're so very present in the world today. They're so very powerful. So some of the things that we need to do are get ourselves up, take the first step, whatever that first step happens to be. Be that goodness that's walking through the world. Be the generosity that the world needs. Be the love that the world needs. Be the compassion that the world needs. Be the courage that the world needs. Be the voice, but not the one that's screaming. The world's got enough voices that are screaming. The voice that the world needs is the one that's peaceful, kind, gentle. The one that's a reminder that the innate energy of ourself is not the beast. It's the blessing of peace. Does that make some sense? So I guess we also have to say, what is goodness, What is peace? Does that mean that everything in the world is just peachy keen? Nobody fights. Nobody says mean things. Everything is good. No, that doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. Even in the teachings, it's written. It says there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people who try to manipulate. There's always going to be some kind of violence. There's always going to be that. The question is not, well, if I'm going to invest in goodness, then I expect the rest of the world to be good. The question is, which side are you going to invest on? Are you going to invest in the status quo that increases suffering, that increases pain, that increases doubt and all those other things? Or are you going to invest in its opposite and throw a little bit of weight to the other side? Have a little bit more faith in yourself. Not only will your life become a happier place, a more fulfilling experience, but the steps that you take in your own life reach out to the people around you. And instead of, having the tendencies out of the frustration of suffering and unnecessary discomforts, when we slam the door in other people's faces, or we slam the phone down, or we talk badly about people, instead of those practices, our practice of goodness will lead us to holding the door open, to saying, I am going to hang the phone up now. Please don't take this personally. Have a nice day. To not talking poorly about other people, to sending other vibrations out into the world instead. Because if you sit and talk poorly about other people, those are the vibrations you're sending them, So our investment becomes one that has tentacles to it, reaching out and touching other people, even though our life is the first place that we see the difference. Any questions or reflections? You look like you have a thought.
There's a lot of reflections.
Would you like to share any of them?
There's a few things I'm thinking of or reflecting on, and when you said about the voices and the screaming, that's mostly in my head. Right, so as you say, it has to start there with us in this kind of goodness. And then perhaps you can speak on too, as we're taking these steps on the path to goodness, right? We can have intentions, and then when the situation hits us, say we hang up the phone, what is the best way then to approach that situation when we've hung up the phone, and asking for, begging for forgiveness, I'm a dumbass, I'm sorry. But without putting ourselves down.
Yeah, because that puts you down.
Right, right. Instead of but acknowledging, is it, and maybe I'm going to talk through this with her. It's acknowledging that mistake sitting with that and then offering up a heartfelt, honest apology. And then it's up to the other person, right, whether or not they accept that and whether or not they want to see that, or if too much damage has been done in that space.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can stop.
So the first thing that you said, which is very powerful, is most of that screaming happens in my mind. Most of that screaming. Do you like being yelled at? If I started yelling at y'all right now, would you like it? No. Then why do you yell at yourself? You know that it's not a good feeling, you know? So find a way to calm the voices in the mind, and the rest will take care of itself. Because the mind, in this instance, is the leader. So if you're yelling at yourself in your mind, your mouth wants to follow. So when you find, and yelling at yourself doesn't just mean that in your mind you're saying to yourself, you're this, you're that. No. Yelling at yourself in your mind is yelling and complaining about the world. Oh my God, those people over there. Oh my God, that person over there. Oh my God, those politics. Oh my God, that religion. Oh, it's all of those thoughts. It's all of those thoughts. That's the yelling in the mind that the mouth wants to follow. The mouth wants to mimic. It's like the mind is the rock star and the mouth is the fan. Wants to be like the rock star. So let me just take some of those thoughts and project them out. You got to give the mouth different thoughts to say. And the first one is acknowledgement. You know, my mind is chaotic right now. So anything that I say is going to, in some way, shape, or form, mimic the chaos of my mind, which is not really what I wish to express right now. So I'm going to choose not to until my mind is in a different place. Right? But if you must say something, you know, if you absolutely must say something, then you can talk it out and you can say, my mind right now is reeling. And it's reeling because of past programming and patterned behavior and all of these things that are leading me down the road of fear and doubt and self-loathing and loathing of the world and whatever. And then my heart is saying something different, though. My heart is saying, please stop listening to your mind. Please stop listening to your mind. But I'm afraid. I'm just afraid. And let that be. Let the honesty of the struggle, the internal struggle, be what you share. You know? More and more, the more you do it, the easier it becomes to recognize. The more you do it, the more you recognize the chasm that exists between the condition of the mind and the call of the heart, the easier it gets to talk about it. But initially it's like, well, I feel like I'm going to look stupid, or I'm going to look weak, or I'm going to look indecisive, or I've got a freaking point to make. Why can't I just make it? That's the ego. Not too healthy of a state right there, right? So you've got to kind of quelch those things initially and choose the whisper versus the roar. Because there is a time to roar, but that ain't it. Right? And then how do you, when you hang up the phone, what do? Catch it immediately. You just slammed it down, pick it back up and place it down properly. Catch it. Catch that. You know? Train yourself. So right now there's a group of us that I'm teaching them the chanting for this very long this very long scripture called the Rudram. And you know, learning another language and how to chant it is not an easy task. Bringing ourselves to invest in goodness is very much like that. So Kelly, you've been in the chanting sessions with me. What do I ask you all to do?
Go within our discomfort and repeat the mantra that we're just learning and out loud to the class, and then have feedback on it.
Right, exactly. Because that's the way that you're going to see the difference. That's the way you're going to know that you can do it, is by doing it. The way that you know goodness is real is by investing in it and seeing it, witnessing it in your own life and how it touches the hearts of others. Just like the way that you come to see and to know and to hear and to feel your own capacity to chant is to do it. And not silently, but out loud. So the action must be out loud too. So when you have slammed the phone down in a moment of uncontrol, take control, pick the receiver back up and say, this is what I meant. You don't have to say that to the other person necessarily, but maybe, if they're still on the other line, at the other end of the line, this is what I meant, in a softer. Train yourself in the proper behavior. I know, I saw that face. I know. What if I don't want to train myself?
Well, I have been doing better when I have to call businesses. And I always, you never know what you're going to walk in.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we're going to put on our patient panties. We're going to be really nice.
Yeah.
And we're going to call. And we're going to smile.
Don't be
It
nice.
works. Well, it works.
It does work, but you don't need to be nice. You just need to be straightforward.
Yeah.
Right? Straightforward. And straightforward is not only about me saying my piece. Straightforward is about me recognizing what I think I know about the situation, what I actually know about the situation, and the distance between those two places. And then acknowledging, A, I'm open to having this conversation. B, I am not open to having this conversation. C, this conversation is going a completely different way than what I had anticipated, and I'm not prepared for it. D, I've lost interest. E, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. Disappointed, angry, something, happy, all these different things. You have so much that you have to record about yourself, take note of about you. It's a full-time job. Wouldn't it be nice if we got paid for it? But this is awareness, right? We take catchphrases like awareness and we put them on T-shirts and we say self-aware.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that mean? What is awareness? Awareness means I'm aware that a leaf just fell off that tree. I just saw it. But I'm also aware that you're all looking at me as we're having this conversation and that you're all listening. And I'm aware that some of you are really interested in this and others of you are still interested, but at a different level. Some of you are troubled, perhaps. Some of you are very open to it. You be aware. And I'm aware of my own self, that I'm using my hands a lot today to talk. Yeah. How aware can you be in a moment? Of how many different things, how much of the picture can you see in a given moment? And acknowledge how much of that picture you actually have control over. It's very little. Very little. Yeah. Does that make sense? I do a time check. I promised Michelle I'd be done on time. 12:25. Is that good or what? I said to her, I'll even stop a moment or two early. No.
So I know I'm struggling with kind of an anxiety, and it's not all the time. It's more when I'm faced with this thing. And the anxiety brings an immediate anger reaction. But my younger daughter is trans femme. My older daughter is bisexual. So the attack on that community is very, very upsetting.
It's Mama Tiger coming out.
Yeah.
Totally. So
dealing with that.
So we have to understand, that that's starting at the summit, right? At the summit, top of the mountain. Starting at the top. That's a huge. Let's start with something a little bit more manageable. Because that mama impulse, No, don't apologize. Where's the tissues? Jagged Dot Street tissues? There should be some here somewhere. Thank you, Leonard. Yeah. Mama bear is going to come out and protect her cubs. Period. Right? On some level, it's part of your dharma to do that. But on another level, it's also part of your dharma to recognize that this battle for rights, for personal rights, is their battle in this life. And that your battle in this life is, yes, to support their battle as best you can, but also to find a way within your own self to be able to honor their strength and courage more than you fear what society will do with them. Which one are you investing in? Yeah. That doesn't make it hurt any less to see them suffering. But it definitely opens up another conversation, doesn't it? It's like, well, if I'm going to make the investment in their courage and their bravery and their ability to be who they are, then what do I have to do? Don't you have to make that same investment? And then all of these people out there in the world who are speaking just so vehemently and hatefully and behaving in that way and legislating in that way, what can you do about that? Can you do anything about that? Probably not so much. I would say less than 0.001% is in your control. But in this other realm, this realm of celebrating who they are as people, celebrating their ability to express themselves and their courage and the bravery that leads them to do so, there's a lot there that you can do. That falls into your 90th percentile. So invest more there and less worrying about out there. When you have the opportunity to make an impact out there, make it. Vote. Advocate. Be a sanctuary in and of yourself for individuals who are struggling. And what I mean by that is let it be known that you will not harm them. And what these other people do, you can't change. How they feel, you can't change. And so that's kind of the starting point. But that's a big starting point. That's like starting to hike when you're already at the top of the mountain. Now, where are you going to go? You know? So maybe start in some other places first. Ask yourself, do some journaling. Why am I so afraid? And there's some real good reasons why. But there's also a lot of not necessary reasons. So start looking at those and figuring out the differences between them. You know, what's driving the fear that you feel? What's driving the sadness that you feel? And accept all of it. Both the very strong, valid reasons and the reasons that are basically worries that are never going to happen. Accept all of it as part of your human lived experience. But then start, investing differently. These worries, I know I'm having them. The reality is that these worries are just taking up space in my mind. They're not likely to ever come to fruition. These worries, they have a more valid basis. Now, what can I do over here? Let me invest. Let me invest my energy, my time, my thoughts over here to a more sublime outcome rather than a hurtful one. Yeah. And I wish that I could say, just close your eyes and think it will all be better, and it will, but it won't, because that's not the world we live in. And every generation has had its struggles. Every generation has had its embattlements. Every generation has had its oppressions. We're no different. Every decade, every 100 years, every year seems anymore, right? And that's not going to change anytime soon. Yeah. It's so hard. Thank you for sharing. My heart is... What was that?
Sorry I made you.
No. Look at that. It's exactly 12:31. We're perfect. We're perfect. Please don't apologize. That's what this is for. That's what this is for. Let's sit tall and close the eyes. And please know that your family is in my prayers. All your families are in my prayers. Sending love and radiance out to all the struggling souls in this world. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. Let's lift our voices in one Om. Om Shri Matre Namaha. May there be peace in the world. May there be peace in the hearts of all the beings in the world. And may there be a servant heart within each of us that comes to its own realization that to invest in the goodness is by far more healing than the other alternatives. Thank you all so much for being here today. So much love to each and every one of you. As a reminder, we won't have classes for the next 2 Sundays, but then we'll be back on the 22nd. And I look forward, I remember it, because Cindy told me what it was. And then I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all.